In the sprawling cosmos, among stars and nebulas, there existed a reputation so formidable that it echoed across the galaxy. Her name was Commander Lyria Voss, a warrior unmatched in the Zentari fleet, known not just for her prowess in battle but for the intense aura that surrounded her. Tales of her victories and the intensity of her leadership made even the bravest alien warriors maintain their distance. Lyria's command ship, the Aegis, was a marvel of engineering, equipped with the latest in quantum weaponry and cloaking technologies. It was here, in the deep recesses of space, that her legend grew, but so did her isolation. The respect she commanded was tinged with a palpable fear, her crew loyal yet distant, always maintaining a careful boundary between themselves and their commander. On a day that seemed much like any other, as the Aegis patrolled the outer rim of the Andromeda sector, a distress signal was picked up by their sensors. It was weak, barely a flicker against the backdrop of cosmic radiation, but it was distinctly human, an anomaly in this far-flung part of space. Against the advice of her advisors, Lyria ordered the ship to alter course. Her decision was driven not by curiosity, but by a sense of duty that extended even to the most distant of spacefarers. As they approached the coordinates, the source of the signal became apparent: a small, battered human spacecraft, adrift and seemingly powerless. The rescue operation was swift, the human craft ensnared by the Aegis's tractor beam and brought into the hangar. The lone occupant was a human male, unconscious but alive. He was quickly taken to the medical bay where Lyria oversaw his care personally, a deviation from her usual role that did not go unnoticed by her crew. When the human, who identified himself as Dr. Ethan Blake, regained consciousness, his confusion was palpable. Before him stood not just any alien, but the Commander Lyria Voss, a figure of near-mythical status, her reputation known even among the distant human colonies. "Thank you for saving my life," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the clear weariness in his eyes. "I didn't expect my distress signal to reach anyone, let alone the Commander Voss." Lyria, unused to gratitude from those she helped, simply nodded. "It is our duty to assist those in need," she replied, her voice firm, revealing none of the curiosity that had driven her to save him. As Ethan recovered, he became a curiosity aboard the Aegis. His presence was a stark contrast to the usual order of things. He was not afraid of Lyria, rather, he was genuinely interested in understanding the famed commander who had become almost a spectral figure across the galaxies. Their conversations began over discussions of technology and tactics, but soon delved deeper. Ethan, with his human perspective, questioned not just Lyria's decisions in battle, but her isolation from her crew and from the galaxy at large. "HFY. Ethan asked during one of their conversations in the observation deck, watching a nebula bloom in the distance. "They respect the power and the necessity of command," Lyria responded, her gaze fixed on the stars. "Fear is merely a byproduct." "But is it what you want?" "Respect born out of fear." Ethan pressed, his question cutting to the core of her solitude. Lyria turned to look at him, her expression unreadable. "It is not a matter of want. It is a matter of survival and command. To lead is to stand apart." Ethan's approach shifted something within Lyria, his question sparking reflections she had long avoided. As their ship journeyed through the stars, so too did Lyria embark on an introspective journey, guided by the human who saw not just the commander, but the person beneath the armor. As the Aegis continued its patrol through the Andromeda sector, the dynamic between Commander Lyria Voss and Dr. Ethan Blake evolved. Their discussions, once purely transactional and focused on tactical and technological exchanges, began to delve into philosophies and leadership. Ethan's unguarded curiosity and genuine empathy slowly chipped away at the walls Lyria had built around herself. One particular evening, as the ship navigated through a field of cosmic ice, creating a shimmering light show outside the observation window, Ethan shared tales from Earth, of oceans and mountains that seemed as alien to Lyria as her world was to him. "You speak of Earth with such fondness," Lyria remarked, her tone carrying a hint of wistfulness. "Is it not difficult being so far from home?" "It is," Ethan admitted, watching her closely. "But sometimes, finding yourself stranded among the stars isn't the worst fate. It can be liberating." The word hung between them, loaded with meaning. Lyria pondered it, her eyes reflecting the starlight. Liberation is a luxury rarely afforded to those in command. Their conversations became a regular occurrence, and while Ethan was intrigued by the strategic mind and the stories of valor, he was more drawn to the glimpses of vulnerability she occasionally let slip. The crew noticed the thawing of their commander's demeanor, though none would dare comment. Her interactions with Ethan, while puzzling to them, brought a subtle shift in the atmosphere aboard the Aegis. However, not all were pleased with this change. Lyria's second-in-command, Subcommander Terex, a Centauri of the Old Guard, watched the growing camaraderie with suspicion. Terex had always interpreted Lyria's strength as synonymous with her solitude, and saw Ethan's influence as a potential threat to her authority. "Commander, the crew speaks highly of the human stories," Terex mentioned during a routine briefing. "But we must not forget the traditions that have forged the strength of this fleet." Lyria met his gaze, her expression inscrutable. "It is not tradition but adaptability that has secured our survival, Subcommander. We must be willing to learn, even from a human." The words settled heavily in the room, a silent assertion of her stance. Terex bowed slightly, conceding the point, but his eyes harbored a storm of unspoken thoughts. As the Aegis approached a neutral trading station for resupply, Lyria invited Ethan to accompany her on the visit. The station, a crossroads for many species, was bustling with activity. Here, Lyria was not just a commander but another face in the crowd, albeit a striking one. Walking through the crowded lanes, Ethan noticed the subtle shift in Lyria's posture, the way her eyes lingered on simple pleasures, a group of children playing, a street musician's melody. "You never truly escape who you are, do you?" Ethan asked as they paused by a vendor selling exotic fruits from distant planets. "No," Lyria replied, her voice soft. "But sometimes you can forget, even for a moment." The excursion ended with an unexpected alert from the Aegis. A nearby vessel had signaled distress. The markings identified it as belonging to the Rivari, known rivals of the Centauri. As they hurried back to the ship, the tension was palpable. Lyria's expression hardened, the brief respite fading as the weight of command reasserted itself. She turned to Ethan, her demeanor now all business. "We are returning to a potential confrontation, Dr. Blake. You will need to remain on the Aegis during the negotiations." Ethan nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. As they boarded the ship and prepared to face whatever awaited them, the lines between commander and confidant, between duty and personal connection, blurred, setting the stage for challenges both external and internal. The Rivari vessel loomed on the Aegis's sensors, a spectral blip that grew increasingly defined as they approached. Commander Lyria Voss's posture was rigid, her mind cycling through potential strategies and outcomes. Beside her on the bridge, Dr. Ethan Blake observed her transformation from the person who had momentarily relished anonymity at the trading station to the commander whose very name commanded fleets. "Prepare to establish a secure communication channel with the Rivari ship," Lyria instructed her communications officer. Her voice was the calm before a storm, authoritative and unwavering. As the Rivari hailed them, the tension on the bridge tightened like a coiled spring. The Rivari were not known for their diplomacy. Their culture was one of conquest and survival of the fittest. The holographic image of Captain Zarek of the Rivari flickered into existence in front of Lyria. "Commander Voss, this is an unexpected honor," Zarek's voice dripped with a mix of sarcasm and veiled hostility. "To what do we owe the pleasure of the mighty Centauri's attention?" "We received your distress signal," Lyria replied, her face an impassive mask. "Centauri protocols demand we offer assistance if possible. What is your situation?" Zarek smirked, a gesture that didn't quite reach his cold eyes. Meiner technical verlore, noting wie kennt handle. "But since you are here, perhaps a trade? Our need is small, but perhaps inconvenient for us at this juncture." Lyria assessed his words and the underlying tone. The Rivari were strategic, often using misdirection. "Specify the nature of the trade." "We require quantum coils, a triviality for a ship like yours," Zarek proposed, his eyes narrowing slightly, watching her for any sign of concession. Behind Lyria, Ethan's mind raced, piecing together information he had read about the Rivari. Quantum coils were not just components, they were potential weapons if modified. He leaned closer to Lyria, speaking lowly. "Quantum coils can be weaponized. He's not just repairing his ship." Lyria nodded subtly, grateful for the insight. Turning her attention back to Zarek, she said, "I'm prepared to offer assistance, but not at the cost of security. We will provide you with alternative support for your repairs." Zarek's eyes flickered with annoyance, then resignation. "Very well, Commander. We accept your terms." As the communication ended, Lyria turned to Ethan, her expression softening slightly. "Thank you, Dr. Blake. Your advice was timely. The crisis averted, Lyria's crew began preparations to transfer non-essential supplies to the Revari. Meanwhile, Lyria invited Ethan to her private quarters to discuss the day's events further. Once there, away from the eyes and ears of the crew, they allowed themselves a moment of vulnerability. "You've changed the way I command, Ethan," Lyria confessed, her voice low. "Your perspectives are refreshing, though unsettling at times." Ethan considered her words, realizing the depth of her isolation. Command doesn't have to be lonely, Lyria. Trust, genuine trust, can be a strength, not a weakness. Lyria walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. "Perhaps," she said, contemplation in her tone. "But old habits, like old fears, die hard." The conversation lingered in the air as they returned to the bridge to oversee the supply transfer. The operation went smoothly, and as the Revari ship withdrew, an unspoken respect seemed to pass between the two captains. A respect born of necessity and the understanding that survival often depended on the alliances one chose to honor or forsake. Back on the bridge, as Lyria resumed her command, Ethan watched her. The woman who commanded fear across the galaxy was finding a new way to lead, influenced by an unlikely companion who saw beyond the legend to the leader she could become. In the weeks following the encounter with the Revari, the relationship between Commander Lyria Voss and Dr. Ethan Blake deepened, their exchanges weaving a complex tapestry of mutual respect and shared insights. Lyria, traditionally solitary in her command, found herself frequently seeking Ethan's counsel, not just on matters of human technology or strategy, but on issues of leadership and morale. The shift did not go unnoticed by the crew of the Aegis. Whispers circulated about the humans' influence on their commander, some skeptical, others hopeful. Subcommander Terex, in particular, watched this development with a wary eye, concerned that Ethan's perspectives were too soft, too alien for the rigid structures of Zentari command. During a routine debriefing session, Terex voiced his concerns, his words carefully chosen to tread the line between respect and admonition. "Commander, while Dr. Blake's advice has proven useful, we must not forget the principles that have guided us through centuries of conquest and survival. Zentari strength does not accommodate weakness." Lyria listened, her expression unreadable. "Strength, Subcommander, evolves," she responded calmly. "What you call weakness is adaptability. We must be as flexible in our thinking as we are firm in our command." The rebuke was gentle but firm, silencing further objections. Terex nodded, acquiescing for the moment, but his doubts remained, a simmering undercurrent among the traditionalists in the crew. As the Aegis continued its patrol, a new mission directive came from Zentari High Command, tasking them with investigating a series of unexplained disappearances of Zentari scout ships in a nearby sector known as the Veil Nebula, a region rumored to be haunted by ghost ships and spectral anomalies. The mission was dangerous, pushing the crew and the ship's capabilities to their limits. Lyria briefed her crew, her tone imbued with the usual confidence, yet there was an undercurrent of caution, an acknowledgement of the unknown that was uncharacteristic of her previous command style. "This mission will test us," she admitted openly. "But I have every confidence in our ability to face whatever mysteries await us." Ethan, who had been researching the nebula, shared his findings with Lyria. The Veil Nebula isn't just a graveyard of ships, it's a field of highly volatile quantum fluctuations. If we can calibrate our shields to adapt to these fluctuations, we might just find out what happened to those scout ships. Intrigued and impressed by his initiative, Lyria authorized the shield modifications, assigning Ethan to work with the engineering team. The collaboration was a success, and as the Aegis ventured into the nebula, its shields held, protecting them from the quantum storms that had ravaged previous expeditions. Inside the nebula, amid swirling gases and intermittent flashes of quantum light, they discovered the remnants of the missing scout ships, eerily adrift, their crews long gone. The mystery deepened when sensors detected faint energy signatures resembling Zentari technology, but distorted, as if through a prism. "We're dealing with something beyond our current understanding," Lyria mused as she and Ethan examined the sensor data. "This might be an emergent phenomenon or something deliberate." Their investigation led them to a hidden structure within the nebula, an ancient alien station, its technology strange and advanced. It was here that they uncovered the truth, a device capable of bending quantum fields, essentially erasing ships from normal space. "This station isn't just a weapon, it's a test," Ethan theorized, his voice tense with excitement. "Whoever built this wanted to see how other species would respond to such technology." Faced with the decision of what to do with the station, Lyria felt the weight of her command more acutely than ever. The choice she made now could alter the balance of power in the galaxy. The discovery of the alien station within the Veil Nebula posed a profound dilemma for Commander Lyria Voss. The technology was clearly advanced, beyond anything the Zentari or any known civilization within the Galactic Council possessed. Its capability to manipulate quantum fields could render fleets invisible or worse, completely erase them from existence. In the silence of the station's control room, illuminated by the eerie light of quantum fluctuations, Lyria stood with Ethan, contemplating their next move. "We could use this technology to secure Zentari dominance in the galaxy," she murmured, her voice a mix of awe and concern. Ethan, however, sensed the underlying moral quandary. Or it could escalate an arms race that would put every species at risk. Such power can easily become a beacon for conflict. Lyria turned to face him, her expression torn between her duty as a Zentari commander and the broader implications of their find. "What would you have us do, Ethan?" she asked, genuinely seeking his perspective. Ethan considered the options, weighing the potential benefits against the catastrophic consequences. "Disable it," he suggested after a thoughtful pause. "Document everything, but ensure no one can misuse it. Perhaps this is a test, not just of technological prowess but of ethical strength." The decision resonated with Lyria, aligning with the new values she had come to appreciate through her interactions with Ethan. With a nod, she gave the order to her technical team to disable the station, documenting its technologies and safeguarding its secrets. As they worked, Sub-Commander Terex observed with growing disapproval. Once the station was neutralized, he confronted Lyria privately, his frustration evident. "Commander, you have forsaken a tremendous advantage. This could have guaranteed our supremacy for generations." Lyria faced him squarely, her resolve clear. Supremacy bought with such power would only invite challenge and rebellion. "We must lead by strength, not by fear." Terex bristled at the rebuke, but held his tongue. The ideological divide between them had never been clearer. With the mission completed, the Aegis left the nebula, the alien station now a silent relic, its secrets locked away by Lyria's orders. The return journey was quiet, reflective, as both Lyria and her crew contemplated the implications of their discovery. Meanwhile, word of their expedition and the ethical decision Lyria had made reached the Galactic Council. It sparked a series of debates about the regulation of emergent technologies and the role of the Zentari in galactic affairs. Lyria, once feared and revered for her military prowess, began to be recognized for her leadership and vision. Back on the Aegis, Lyria and Ethan continued their discussions about leadership, ethics, and the future. "You've changed the way I see command," Lyria admitted one evening as they watched the stars streak by from the observation deck. "Perhaps it's time for Zentari strategies to evolve." Ethan smiled, his eyes reflecting the starlight. "Change is the essence of life, Lyria. It's inevitable and necessary. And sometimes, it takes just one decision to steer the course of history." Their bond, forged in the depths of space and tested by the fires of ethical dilemmas, had grown into a profound partnership. As the Aegis approached Zentari space, both Lyria and Ethan were aware that the challenges ahead were formidable. But they were also a chance to redefine Zentari presence in the galaxy, a chance to lead not by fear, but by example. As the Aegis re-entered Zentari space, the repercussions of their decisions in the Veil Nebula began to manifest. News of their ethical stance and the deactivation of the alien quantum manipulation station had spread, sparking a spectrum of reactions across the Galactic Council and among the Zentari themselves. Lyria and Ethan prepared to present their findings and decisions to the High Command, fully aware that their approach might challenge the traditional Zentari doctrines of power and domination. The debriefing was set in the High Command's austere hall, where the walls were adorned with relics of conquest and victory, reminders of the Zentari's proud and fierce history. As they walked into the hall, Lyria felt the weight of countless eyes upon her, their gazes mixed with respect, skepticism, and in some cases, undisguised disdain. She stood before the council, her posture commanding, yet there was a new openness in her demeanor that had been shaped by her recent experiences and her interactions with Ethan. "Members of the High Command, we stand before you not just as soldiers of the Zentari fleet but as guardians of our future," Lyria began, her voice resonating across the hall. "Our mission into the Veil Nebula revealed a technology that could have granted us unprecedented power. However, we chose to neutralize this threat, to prevent a potential arms race that would undoubtedly bring more destruction than security. Murmurs filled the room, some nodding in agreement while others whispered in dissent. Sub-Commander Terex, ever the traditionalist, stood, his tone confrontational. Commander Voss, while your achievements are undisputed, your decision to disable a strategic advantage is questionable. How do you justify this to a civilization that prides itself on strength and supremacy? Lyria met his challenge with a steady gaze. Strength, Sub-Commander, is more than the ability to dominate, she countered. True strength comes from knowing when to exert power and when to restrain it. The galaxy is changing, and we must adapt our strategies to lead through respect and cooperation rather than fear. Ethan, standing slightly behind Lyria, watched the exchange, his respect for her growing. He had seen her transform from a commander feared by many into a leader who could inspire change, not only within her own ranks but potentially across the galaxy. The council deliberated long after Lyria and Ethan had presented. Debates raged, opinions clashed, but eventually, a decision was reached. The council, influenced perhaps more by Lyria's reputation and the persuasive arguments she and Ethan had crafted, voted to support her actions. Furthermore, they agreed to initiate a review of Zentari military protocols, considering ethical implications in their strategies moving forward. As Lyria and Ethan left the council chamber, a sense of accomplishment mixed with trepidation filled the air around them. They had initiated a shift in Zentari policy, one that might take generations to fully realize, but the first steps had been taken. In the days that followed, Lyria and Ethan continued their discussions, planning how they might influence further reforms within the Zentari fleet and beyond. Their partnership had proven to be a powerful catalyst for change, and as they worked together, their bond deepened, rooted in mutual respect and shared ideals. One evening, as they stood looking out at the vastness of space from the deck of the Aegis, Lyria turned to Ethan. "You've shown me that leadership can be more than command. It can be a legacy of change. For that, I am grateful." Ethan smiled, his gaze meeting hers. "And you've taught me that even warriors can be peacemakers. I'm proud to stand with you, Lyria." The stars above them twinkled, silent witnesses to the evolution of a commander and the human who had changed everything. Together, they looked towards the future, ready to face whatever challenges it held, knowing that together, they could change not just themselves, but perhaps the galaxy itself.